Hello everybody, it's Josie here and I'm back with the second in my series of 2018 wrap-ups about the books that I enjoyed, about the books that maybe I didn't enjoy so much. So we started on a low, we're now going up to the highs, to the books that I really liked. And today we're talking about the books that surprised me the most for the year. So I think these are the ones that I maybe wasn't expecting that much from, maybe on genres that I necessarily normally read, just ones that surprised me, but surprised me in a good, positive way. So I've got a lovely stack over here, so let's get going. So the first one I've got here is one that I've talked about a little bit in some of my previous videos, but it's this one over here. It is The Raven Boys by Maggie Stiefvater. And you can tell this is tabbed up. There were a lot of things I wanted to remember and refer back to. And for those of you that don't know, The Raven Boys is the first in a series, the Raven Cycle series. And it's a series that has been talked about so much on BookTube. A lot of people really love it. I was very hesitant with this, and the main reason was when I picked up this book, it says on the bottom, if you kiss your true love, he'll die. Which led me to believe that this was very much a straight up YA romance, which I'm not really that keen on reading. I'm not really a romance, just a plain romance novel reader. So I was quite hesitant to read this, but then I know that Cece from Problems of the Book Nerd, who is one of my favourite booktubers, she loves this, so I eventually thought I'll give it a go and see, and I was so pleasantly surprised. This book is more about friendship than anything else, so romance plays a very small part, but what I loved about the story was it has one of my all-time favourite tropes in it, and it's that kind of found family of misfits who aren't necessarily bound by blood, but whose friendship is so strong that they are essentially a family. And I love that trope, and it's like it's something that is in Hotel, for example, for American Horror Story. I love it. It's one of my favorite things to read about, and this book just surprised and delighted me, and I have actually got the second book here. I've just bought it, so that's the second book in the series. I will be reading this very soon, and I'm expecting this to be one of my favorite series for 2019. Late, I know, but anyway. So the next one I want to talk about is this gorgeously shiny book over here called Clean by Juno Dawson. And I picked up this book, two reasons. One, I love this cover. You can see yourself in this cover. It's brilliant. I loved it when I saw it. It's signed by the author, and I like Juno Dawson. I've read a lot about her own personal story, about her journey, and I wanted to read one of her books. So I picked this one up. I'll be honest, it's basically about a kind of a socialite called Lexi, so think sort of a Paris Hilton type person, who ends up going to rehab. It's about her time in rehab and the people she meets in there. And I wasn't really expecting, that much from it. It sounded nice, but I really, really enjoyed this. I enjoyed the writing, I enjoyed the crafting of the character of Lexi, I enjoyed kind of the peripheral. It was like watching a really good American teen program, which is kind of one of my vices, guilty pleasures. So I had a fabulous time reading this book, and it also has made me want to read more Juno Dawson. And I was on one of my charity shop runs literally earlier this morning, and I came across this one here called Under My Skin, and you can see the title, the author's still James Dawson, but this is Juno Dawson, one of her other books. So that was a really cool find because, you know, I've been wanting to read more Juno Dawson and I found some in the charity shop. So yeah, so I was pleasantly surprised. I enjoyed this. It is a fun ride, but it also has some deeper topics in it, which I thought were really interesting. Yeah, and one of my surprise enjoyments of 2018. Then the next one, talking about surprises, is this one over here. This is The Animators. Now, I had never heard about this book, I'd never heard anything about it. I literally picked it up because I loved the cover, and particularly I loved this girl on the cover. And she is I would say, a more butch-looking lesbian character on the cover of a book. You don't see that all that much. So that's why I picked it up. But the story is about these two friends, Mel and I'm trying to remember the other girl's name, Sharon, who are animators. They do animated films. And like I said, I picked it up because it was a cover by. I started reading it and I just fell in love with these characters. And the story was beautiful. It is about their friendship over several years. It's about what happens to the two of them. It's about their past, about their secrets. and it's about life, love and friendship, and that's kind of the books that I really like to read. That's sort of what draws me to books. And this is a beautiful, well-crafted story that actually surprises you at some points as well. And I loved it. This is going to be one of my books of the year. I loved it that much, and I would encourage anybody to read this. This is a fantastic book. Then the next book that I was both anticipating but also surprised me in many ways is this one over here, The Brilliant Death. I thought I'd go with the older, carry on with the orange cover. I seem to like golden orange covers and yellow. So The Brilliant Death is one I've just read for Fall Into Fantasy. It's a brand new release, and it's basically a YA fantasy set kind of in an alternative Italy. And our main character is a strega, a witch, but she's always been told to hide that because magic is not acceptable. But what she's been doing, because it's a kind of like a mafia version as well, is she's been turning her father's enemies into inanimate objects with her magic. And while she's doing this, she comes across another strega. And that just sounded like fun anyway. But what I loved about this book was that it's an LGBTQIA book, and the two main characters, so the two strega, they, particularly one of them, they can change gender. So throughout the book you have this gender play and this gender roles question around our main character. She is not supposed to represent the family because she's a woman, but she goes and represents the family anyway. And she has to obviously change her gender to be a boy, to be accepted in this enclave. And the whole way through this book you have this beautiful love story between these two strega, and you also have them switching gender and switching bodies, and there's this discussion around who you really are, how you feel, around gender fixing, around I guess gender fluidity, which I think is so relevant and is so current and is so unusual to find in a YA fantasy book. And I loved that about this book. I think it's a beautifully written book. I think it's a fun story, but for me, that was what grabbed me, was that discussion around gender and gender fluidity and really discovering who you are and being happy with that and not being what other people tell you you need to be. So I love that. Then the next book is this one over here. It is The Monstrous Child. Now, Francesca Simon has written a book that I adored, and I was surprised at how much I adored this. It is a children's book. I mean, YA, I would say some of the themes explored in it are more YA, but it could also lean slightly younger, and I thought it was going to be slightly younger, but it's essentially about hell, and she is a goddess, but she's kind of deformed, and the gods in heaven don't like her because she's not pretty and she's not lovely, and they cast her down to hell to be the ruler of hell. And that in itself is a really kind of a really strong kind of disturbing premise. And this book disturbed me. It made me cry, which is really unusual. It is incredibly fascinating. It's incredibly interesting, again, discussion on morality, on how much, you know, we place on outward looks, on how much we judge people by how they look. And it is incredibly fascinating. It's incredibly heartbreaking, and it's also about abuse, parental abuse, neglect. It is an incredible book, and if you can stomach it, I would highly recommend reading this. It's fantastic. And then the last one that surprised me, I don't know why, because everybody did say it was really good, but it's this one over here, Circe. So again, it seems to be shiny black cover time for me. Circe is about the Greek goddess and witch Circe, and basically about her life story. A lot of people love this book, and I picked it up because I thought I would like it, but I didn't realise I would love it quite as much. It was fascinating, it was engaging, it was interesting, it was so much fun to see all the Greek mythology woven in, all the different heroes. Her story is heartbreaking, but also kind of triumphing over her adversary, becoming a strong woman. I love that. I love that Circe is tough. She's a witch. She looks out for herself. And she really grows into her own in this. So I love this book. I would definitely recommend this. It's one of my favourite books that I've read this year, and I only recently read it. And it's beautiful both inside and out. So that's my lot. I will speak to you soon. Thanks for listening. We're back with a new video very soon. Happy Christmas. Bye bye everybody.